On this week's episode of the WNP podcast, from the best to the worst. Stay tuned. Episode 169 of the We're Not Professionals podcast. I'm your host, Mike Mitchelson, and joining me today, as always, my co-host, Chase Crawshaw. Chase, how are you on this lovely Sunday afternoon?
I'm doing swell. Thank you for asking. Also doing pretty nice since it's episode 169. I'm excited to chat today.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one, and we are going to be diving in pretty early on. We've got one draft prospect we want to quickly talk about before we actually hop in, but today is our 2023 NFL draft preview for the edge and linebacker positions. And the intro said from best to worst because you could argue that this edge class is the best we've seen in a while and potentially the best position group in this draft class versus a linebacker class, which is very weak compared to past drafts and potentially could be the worst position group in this draft class. So we'll talk about that more as we preview our top 10 edge rushers, our top 5 linebackers. But first, before we do that, let's talk about Will Levis, Chase. Let's talk about him.
Why not? Why not talk about him?
So this Will Levis guy, you and I both had him, I believe, at our quarterback 4.
Yep.
And he's a prospect that is a little bit older and has a big arm. And coming into the draft process, a lot of people were talking him up. A lot of people had comparisons to Josh Allen. And ever since people started putting on the tape and now watching the combine, they're seeing that maybe he's not that, but things are swinging in a very opposite way. People were hyping him up. Now people are actively hating on Will Levis. I've been seeing a lot of hate on Twitter for him. And now I am kind of in a similar boat where I personally don't think he's one of the top guys. I think I had him ranked like 30th overall in my draft rankings right now. I think he's very end of day 1, early day 2. But I'm hoping for great success out of the young man personally. I don't know him, but there's been a lot of like hate directed towards him, and I don't really get it. But I have this from Colin Cowherd because he's one of these big media heads that gets a lot of ratings, and he was talking about the lack of self-awareness when Will Levis was posting his body transformation pictures. He said that this is a meathead from New Jersey type of thing, trying to show off for his friends. And he also said that he looks like every loser on the internet that posts shirtless pictures in the gym, as well as there's never been a great NFL quarterback that looks like a bodybuilder. So Colin Cowherd showing some hate there. I've been seeing a lot of it in the fantasy world as well. No one's interested in Will Levis. So what do you make of all this, Chase? Do you think it's warranted? Do you think people are, just readjusting too far? They went past the center line and now it's gone the opposite way too hard. What are your thoughts?
I think people on the show or listening to the show should be relatively aware, and I know you are, at least, of my dislike towards Colin Cowherd, and it's going to continue here because, sure, I'm not the biggest Will Levis guy. I still think he has NFL talent. I still think he's someone that's worth taking a shot on. Just because you're a quarterback doesn't mean, you're not very good, but I should spend a first-round pick on you in my eyes. Like, I still think he's worthy of that pick because I think there could be something there. So to see him hating like that, like I don't agree with it. To see some of the hate that's going on around, I just don't agree with. And as a fat guy myself, I think if I turn into that, I would also be posting pictures online too and be like, yeah, suck it, look what I did. I'm not gonna lie. So I can't fault the guy for being proud of him taking care of his body and bulking it up and doing all that type of thing. In terms of an NFL quarterback succeeding with that build, it depends on what your ideal levels of success are. Because like Sam Bradford did the similar type of thing back in his draft cycle. He ended up getting drafted pretty high because of it, made some money, and had a very solid NFL career overall. So I think like I don't think it's just as cut and dry as Colin Clownherd is kind of making it out to be. But I can understand in general people not thinking he should be like a top 5 pick, because like I don't disagree there, but the like hatred is starting to get a little excessive.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And it seems like the NFL community and the league itself has very differing views on everything that's going on. A week ago, Chad Forbes talked about, who is a Twitter personality, talked about how apparently he was bombing interviews. However, I've got different news from today. We've got Dov Kleeman, who, again, is a source that I feel like a lot of people know, but he has had some bad information. He said that there is buzz league-wide that the Colts are interested in selecting Will Levis 4th overall. And then we get one from NFL Trade Rumors, which is, again, another verified account. But, again, you can't really trust everything you hear. But Will Levis to the Colts reportedly gaining a lot of buzz league-wide. So seems like there's some big differences between the community and at least the Colts front office from a couple of different sources.
And what it comes down to is I'm going to trust my own opinions, and I'm going to trust the NFL managers, owners, coaches' opinions as well. So if the NFL thinks that Will Levis is the 4th overall pick, then they do it, and maybe we should reevaluate ourselves a little bit, because like that's kind of where I stand with that. And I can understand a team wanting to take a shot on him. I absolutely can. So to take him at that spot, especially when you're in need of a quarterback, the positional value in the NFL is so different than any other sport. You can't really fault a team for liking his traits enough and want to take him that high. And if a team's going to take him that high and believe in him, then I'm going to, believe in him maybe a little more than I currently do.
Absolutely. All right, Chase, well, let's hop in immediately to our top 10 edge rushers. I figure we get them out of the way right now because depending how long the episode goes, we might need to speed things up a little bit. And if we want to speed things up a little bit on any position, probably be the linebackers. So we'll start with our top 10 edge players. Before you go through 1 through 10, what do you think about the edge class overall? Do you think it's top heavy? Do you think it's got a lot of depth? Do you think it's both? What are your thoughts overall?
Well, I have 16 with day 2 grades or higher. So I've got quite a bit of faith in this group as a whole. I think it's very strong up top, and I think it's very balanced through as well. And when you talk about maybe it's the deepest position in the class, it rivals running back, that's for sure. Especially, running back, like really you could survive with one running back. NFL teams nowadays, you need at least 2 edge rushers. And like you obviously want more than one running back, but like, so for every running back drafted in a draft, you need 2 edges essentially. So when you're kind of comparing it that way, maybe running back still gets the advantage, but like edge is, if someone told me they think edge is the best thing in this class, like what am I gonna do? Say no, you're wrong? Because like I can very well see the path there. It's super strong.
Yeah, and I think you could see corners rival this as well. We're going to be doing our defensive back rankings next week, but there's a lot of buzz about a lot of different corners as well, so that's a pretty deep group as well, but this edge class is awesome. I currently have 5 different edge players with a first-round grade.
Samesies.
Oh my gosh, that's so cute. I'm curious to see if they're all the same. I would have to guess probably not, but I guess we'll have to wait and see.
They're probably close, but like maybe not all 5.
Yeah. All right, well, let's just hop right in. Go ahead 1 through 10. If you've listened to our episodes before, you know exactly how we do it. Chase and I both list off our top 10, then we'll go through, talk about the players individually, strengths, weaknesses, and what we could see them doing at the next level.
All right, number 1, Will Anderson out of Alabama, in case that surprises anybody. Number 2, Tyree Wilson out of A&M, correct? I don't know why I just
Texas Tech.
Texas Tech, my bad. Yeah, I don't know what the hell just happened with my brain fart there. But number 3, Miles Murphy from Clemson. Number 4, Nolan Smith from Georgia. Number 5, we got Lucas Van Ness dude, I don't know why I'm struggling to remember all these
Iowa.
schools for these positions. Iowa, thank you. Number 6, Isaiah Foskey, Notre Dame. Number 7, BJ Ojulari, LSU. Number 8, Yaya Diaby, Louisville. Number 9, Derek Hall out of where the hell's Derek Hall from?
Auburn.
Mike? Auburn. And then number 10, I do have. Sorry, I was trying to click on it. Number 10, I do have frickin' Zach Harrison.
Okay. My 10.
Similar?
There's names left off.
Okay, we'll see.
Definitely names left off. All right, number 1, Will Anderson out of Alabama. Number 2, Tyree Wilson out of Texas Tech. Number 3, Nolan Smith out of Georgia. Number 5, BJ Ojulari out of LSU.
You skipped number 4.
Number 4 is BJ Ojulari out of LSU.
You said number 5.
Okay. Number 5, Miles Murphy out of Clemson. Number 6, Felix Anadike Uzoma. Number 7, Lucas Van Ness. Number 8, Isaiah Foskey. Number 9, Will McDonald out of Iowa State. And number 10, this one's going to be a tough one for me all episode, but Adetomiwa Adebaware out of Northwestern.
Yes, sir. Adebaware. And all those guys that you said, like I all have day 2 grades on at least, the ones I don't have in my top 10. So that just goes to show, we're going to have some differences here, but like it's definitely a class we like quite a bit.
Yes, it's a good class for sure. We'll start off with Will Anderson, obviously the consensus number 1 between the two of us. First question for you is, how does he compare to the rest of the draft class? We talked about Jalen Carter being the number 1 guy. Did Will Anderson dethrone Carter, or do you still have Carter over Anderson?
I've got Will Anderson as my number 2. I got him as my number 2 behind Jalen Carter. It's very, very, very close. Like it could, a very slight uptick would be able to have me place Will Anderson over Jalen Carter based on my numbers. But right now, he sits behind him. Those are the 2 guys, just based on pure talent, I would say are the number 1 overall worthy players. Of course, positional value at quarterback is going to change a bit, but in terms of the pure talent, I've got Jalen Carter and Will Anderson is the guys I would want most first overall. And going over Will Anderson, my notes is really as close to perfect as you can get for an edge rusher. Elite athleticism, elite strength, elite play recognition, an elite pass rush, elite run defending, and even when he needs go back in coverage, like when he has to, it's not going to be asked to do it a ton because like he's truly an edge pass rusher. Like he did it. Really, the only thing that I would want him to do, I guess, is just continue to just add a move or 2 and just continue improving what you already have, and you have legitimate all-pro already.
Yeah, I mean, Will Anderson, he's one of the best players in college football, if not the best player in college football over the last couple of years. He's done so much, got incredible burst, strength, lateral agility, speed to power, and his bull rush is like next level, unreal. Probably the best bull rush we've seen come out of any draft class in quite some time. That is his go-to move, and it's fantastic. But like Chase mentioned, I think he needs to bring in a little bit more to his moveset, his repertoire, because right now that seems like his only go-to, and when it gets stopped, obviously he can still make some things happen, but at the next level, you're not going to be able to bully, every offensive tackle like you can in college football. But there's not really any big question marks. I think he just needs to add a little bit more there. And as well as I think his tackling can be a little bit more consistent. But overall, this guy's fantastic. He's got the speed. He's got the bend. He's got the power. He's got it all to be an elite edge rusher at the next level.
Even if he didn't add anything, if he just stayed this, he's still beating a lot of NFL tackles, honestly. He's just at that point where he is a high-end NFL player based on pure talent. It would be surprising to see him not have success in the NFL. It happens every year. These highly touted guys don't work out. I, again, though, would be very shocked if Will Anderson is that one, because I don't see a legitimate flaw in his game. Just a couple things he can improve on.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, 100%. I just think, bull rush, if he's trying to bull rush Trent Williams, that might be a little difficult. So that's
No,
where, you
yeah,
can
no,
add him.
yeah, like that's fair, but that's why I said most tackles.
Mm-hmm. All right, Tyree Wilson, our number 2, pretty consensus there as well. What do you like about the Texas Tech Raider?
I saw something about some teams might have, Tyree Wilson above Will Anderson, and I can't get there. I love Tyree Wilson. I think he's awesome. The way it currently sits, he's my number 6 player on my draft board, but like Will Anderson has separated himself from me. So I just don't agree with people saying that. But he's got all the talent in the world as well, man. Like he's got everything there. He's not as close to perfect as Will Anderson, but he's definitely closer than a lot of other people in this draft. He's just scheme versatile, in my opinion. I think you can use him on the line. I think you can use him as a rushing linebacker. However you need to use him, I think you can just feel safe. Anybody can draft him to just pure talent. He's best as a pass rusher, obviously, but he's also very strong in the run game. I think he does a very good job with his tackling. I didn't see when I was watching too many times, if really any time, where someone got out of his grip once he got a hold of them. And that's a very strong attribute to have when you're in the run game. The one thing that maybe could be better is just his like pure athleticism. That's not something that's really going to change too much though. And I still don't think it's a big issue. Like honestly, I think he's someone that's going to find the success even without just the like perfect elite athletic abilities, but he still has very high end athletic abilities generally, in my opinion. So there's again not really much flaw to his game. It's mostly just continuing to develop everything where you're at right now. If you can take everything to the next level, then all of a sudden you are just best of the best.
Yeah, I like Tyree Wilson a lot, and I feel like you might be cheating off me or something because I also have him as my 6th best player, only behind Jalen Carter, Will Anderson, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Bijan Robinson. Is that the same?
I have Anthony Richardson as my number 2 quarterback, so it's Anthony Richardson instead of CJ Stroud.
Okay. So pretty similar.
Yeah.
But Tyree Wilson is this year's, and I'm forgetting his name now. The guy who went first overall last year from Georgia. Trayvon Walker.
Trayvon Walker?
Yes. Tyree Wilson is this year's Trayvon Walker because the size, the traits, they're all there. Except I would argue Tyree Wilson had some better production in college versus Trayvon Walker when he was coming out. Tyree Wilson has just been able to blow dudes up. I mean, right after we did our podcast on the interior defensive lineman, I was watching a little bit of Tyree Wilson, and I sent a video to Chase because this dude went up against a guard and threw him back into the quarterback.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
It was ridiculous. And his long arm, single long arm stab where he can just continue to move around and push back these tackles is unreal. I mean, I think the guy's awesome. Great bend, great speed, great strength for how long he is as well. I think he's excellent when it comes to run stopping and a great tackler because he has so much length. The one complaint I had about him is not every play does he look like a dominant pass rusher like Will Anderson does. But that really shouldn't be as expected. But when you do see it, it's like different level type of stuff. But I think Tyree Wilson continues to grow, continues to add stuff to his repertoire, and already he's a very good player.
100%. He's whoever ends up getting him, they're going to be very lucky and very happy.
And I think I'm a little bit surprised with it too, because Tyree Wilson, he kind of came out of nowhere when it came to mock drafts and player rankings as the season started to wind down. There wasn't a lot of talk about him before the season started, at least as, a top 5, top 10 player. But then we started seeing just out of nowhere, number 6, that's Tyree Wilson. And so then actually putting on his tape, it's pretty obvious why.
Yeah, I mean, like I didn't really watch Tech this year, honestly. Like it's not a team that is really on my radar too much. It's just I got other schools I'm going to watch. So of course I didn't really know a ton about him. I heard the name is really about it, and then his name starts shooting up the boards as you mentioned. So I finally get to watching the film, and yeah, I can see why people loved him. So it was a little crazy that you didn't hear more about him during the season.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's talk about your number 3, that being Myles Murphy out of Clemson.
Yeah. So he was your number 4, correct?
He was
Or
my number
5?
5, yes.
That's right. Okay. Still in the first round, though.
Yep.
Yeah. So, again, I have him in the first round. I have him still as a top half first round player. I'm assuming you have him as a bottom half first round player. Which nothing wrong with that. I can understand your argument. But for me, I think he's also a bit scheme and position versatile. I think you can safely take him. Whatever team, whatever defensive scheme you might run, you don't have to really worry too much that he's not going to fit because like he can get his hand in the dirt. He can he can stand up. But whatever you need him to do, like he's going to be just fine. I personally would line him up like on the line and get his hand in there because I think that's how he's having the most success. But he's super strong. He's athletic enough to be field drop back if he needed to. Has just absolutely tremendous rush moves, just absolute power, just mauls over blockers. Really, all I think he needs to do is just continue furthering tools he has. It's just like everybody else. He might not be as high end as Will Anderson. He might be also below Tyree Wilson, but like I've seen everything in his game. I've seen all of it be there at least points. So and it's all at least good, and he's got things that are elite. Like I think he is a very elite pass rusher. I think he's just incredibly high end. He had great college production. So really, all he's got to do is just continue on, just building on what he has, and he could do something special.
And I kind of see him a little bit more similar to like a George Karlaftis out of last year's draft, or another type of power. I don't think this is going to be a guy who puts up 13, 14 sacks in a season, but he's got that big frame. He's very strong. He's very aggressive. Like you mentioned, he does have versatility, and I personally think that I would rather see him line up on like 3 technique. When it comes to obvious passing downs, I think you can get a lot of pressure from the middle, and then you can bring in someone a little bit smaller on the outside, and that can be really dangerous on third downs. But I think that he's a really good, strong player. My only problem with him is I don't know if he has the speed bend combination to be an elite outside rusher, which he doesn't need to be. Whichever team drafts him, I'm sure they'll utilize him to his best ability. And then secondly, in the run game, he tends to be overzealous at times. He goes to make the big play, and it winds up missing. Sometimes the big play pays off, but most of the time it didn't. I think he's generally okay when it comes to the run game, but there are times where he tries to go for it all and just misses.
Yeah, I've got him better as okay. I still think he's at least like pretty to very good in that aspect. Someone that I'm not really planning on taking off the field really on any downs. Like I'm happily keeping him out there. I'm trusting him in every aspect. I still think he can do damage in the run game, even if you have those types of questions. I don't wholeheartedly agree, and I don't think he's someone that should be coming off the field anyway.
Yeah, no, I don't think he should be coming off the field either. I think he's really good. I think you just got to utilize him to his best ability. I think on the outside that wouldn't be the case. I think more of a 3-4 defense, one of those edge defenders playing 5 tech or 7 tech, and then maybe even 3 tech on rushing downs would be awesome. So I think no matter what, you're going to get a good player out of Myles Murphy. I just had a little bit more upside with my next 2 players. So let's talk about him, shall we? My number 3.
Let's talk about him.
Being Nolan Smith out of Georgia. Did you have him 4?
I had Nolan Smith. 4. That sounds right. I'm pretty double check, make sure, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nolan Smith out of Georgia. This is a guy who his production wasn't all there. He had to deal with some injuries during this season, but when you look at his combine workout and how unreal it was, you turn on the tape and go, oh, yeah, that translates. Like, I can absolutely see the 4.39 speed. I can absolutely see the burst of him just flying out of here with his vertical jump. Like, everything that you see on Nolan Smith is just pure blazing speed. He's got great bend. I think he's got some of the best potential in this class as a whole. I think the one thing that he lacks is there's no really true pass rush moves that he uses. He more relies on just flying around the tackle, which he can do at this point. And then because he's a little bit smaller of an edge, he can get bullied a bit in the run game as well. But I think when it comes to his play off ball, little coverage action. I think he's one of the best, if not the best, when it comes to this edge rushing class. I think he's really good in that aspect. So I just like to see him improve a little bit in the run game and then add some more pass rushing moves. But I mean, this guy's got the potential of, the top other guys in this class.
In terms of off ball, anybody else that I ranked higher than him, I just called him a linebacker because it's like, all right, if I'm ranking higher than this, like everything else, you're just kind of whatever. And so I'm officially calling you a linebacker. And I called Nolan Smith an edge for basically every reason that you just kind of echoed there. I echo everything you're just saying. That's the words I'm looking for. In terms of, athleticism, I said before, I do out of 6 for my points. I gave him a 6.25 because like he's got unbelievable athleticism for the position. Yeah, he's a bit smaller. You'd like to see him, maybe weigh a little bit more and be a little bit taller. But when it comes to the way he plays, it's not a big deal because, as you said, he can bend around the tackle. He can fly. If you're not ready for him, like he's got burst. Like you got to be ready. If you're even an eighth of a second delayed, like he's got a free path to the quarterback because of how quick he can move. And I think he has enough, like functional strength where you don't have to like worry that once he gets engaged in a block, he can't come off fix. I think he can tread those blocks. He's got the strength. He can, when he's going against maybe a weaker and experienced offensive lineman, maybe if he's going against a guard, he can kind of push them over a little bit more. I think he's got great athleticism in the run game as well. I think he can, he can sees the field well enough and adjust quick enough where he's just like a kind of a beast no matter where he's at on the field. So I think he's got awesome, awesome versatility if you need to use him in coverage, but he's obviously best rushing the passer. The only thing that would have made him a higher grade for me, honestly, is if he were a bit bigger.
Yeah, and I think Myles Murphy is more of a day one contributor than the likes of Nolan Smith, but if you're a team looking for that ceiling, I mean, you look at what Hassan Reddick did this year. He put up 16 sacks for the Eagles. He played absolutely unreal with a smaller frame. This guy's a better athlete than Hassan Reddick is. So if you're looking for that pure ceiling, a guy who can just dominate after a couple of years, I think Nolan Smith's that guy. So that's why I put him just slightly above Myles Murphy. And, regardless, these top couple of guys, you're going to get a fantastic player.
Yeah, I agree. And once we get time to doing like our mock drafts, team wants, whatever, even though he's my number 4, outside of Will Anderson, he might be the edge rusher I prefer the most for the Lions. I think he just complements Aiden Hutchinson so well.
Yeah. I mean, Aiden Hutchinson, we know how good he is, and he's great in the run game. But to bring a guy like Nolan Smith, who's pure speed and can bring a little bit more pressure, make it a little bit easier for the likes of Aiden Hutchinson and the rest of that line, I mean, that would be fantastic.
Like it would be an awesome fit. So depending how the draft goes, if he's sitting there at 18, looking at you, and the way things fall is just like you need that edge right there. Like I think that's perfect fit.
Absolutely. All right. I'm going to move to my number 4 because our numbers are different a little bit. We're going to stay in order here. I got BJ Ojulari out of LSU as my number 4. I think he is one of the more versatile edge rushers, even though he might be a little bit undersized. 6'3", 250 is what I have him listed here. I think he's a little bit smaller than that. But
6'2", 248 was his combine.
Great. So a little bit smaller when it comes to his length. Size is nice at 248, but he's very versatile. He's got a lot of power. He's got a lot of speed. Now, he's going to win more with his speed. I think he's one of the nicest benders in this class. But he can do both. And the one thing that I loved watching BJ Ojulari for was the confidence he has in using different moves. I mean, there's a lot of guys we talked about. Will Anderson, he went for the bull rush. Tyree Wilson, he went for the one-arm stab. Multiple different. Nolan Smith, just speed. BJ Ojulari used so many different moves. Now, I don't think any of them were great. I think he needs to develop them more. But he used so many different things. Spins, the ghost move that Von Miller brought into the league, long arm, bull rush. He used so many different things and won with many of them. I'm excited to see what he can do at the next level. I personally think he's a better player than his brother Azeez Ojulari, who was my number 1 edge rusher back 2 years ago when Azeez came out of the league or came out of college into the league. But this is a guy who I think has so many tools and has already shown the confidence to try different things. he's going to be a coach's favorite player because they can just have him try different things. I think the only issue I have with him is I'd like to see him be a little bit more consistent in the run game, but he's got the speed that he can chase down guys. He just has to get them.
Yeah, man, I can agree a lot with what you're saying. I've got him right now without ranking DBs, my 32nd ranked player on the board. So I still am looking at him as a early to mid at worst second round pick. I don't think anything poorly on him, even though I have him as my edge 7, which again just speaks to the level that I think this class is. And I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I think I maybe saw his strength as a little bit lesser than you did. Not that he's weak, but I think that if he were to get a bit stronger and could win a little more with that bull rush move, as you're mentioning, if he can figure that out at the NFL level, because I think at first he's going to kind of struggle in that aspect. Just get to the weight room, just add a little more functional upper body strength, get a little more core balance. I think that'll help a ton. But everything else in terms of the athletic and more of the speed moves, I think that's all pretty generally there. So I don't think he's too far off from being a legitimate contributor, and I still think he contributes from day one. But like once he gets halfway into the season, I think he's really gonna start ramping it up.
Yeah, and who's the guy again from Florida State that went to the Jet? Jermaine Johnson. That's who it is. Jermaine Johnson was a big love of yours. I was also a huge fan. George Karlaftis was like, that was my love child last year. But Jermaine Johnson is one of those guys that he kind of doesn't get as much talk as the rest of the field did last year, but you and I super high on. I think BJ Ojulari is one of those guys for me as well. I think there is people talking about him as he should be worth a first-round pick, but most people are talking about him as, just a top 50 player coming in that second round. I think this is that guy for me this year where I think he just should be so much higher than what he's rated right now across the board.
I mean, he's not falling outside my top 50. I'm not going to have 18 DBs in front of him. So I'm guessing he stays in my top 40 as well. So I'm definitely in like you are. I think he is got a lot of talent, a team that gets to wait on edge. They fill a couple other needs and they grab him in the second round. Like, hats off to you. That's a nice piece to get in the second round potentially.
Absolutely. All right, Chase. Well, I went 2 in a row, and now you get to go 2 in a row because Myles Murphy was my number 5. So let's talk about your number 5 and then your number 6.
My number 5, Mr. Lucas Van Ness. Little disappointed, Michael. I thought maybe you would have had him in the first round, but whatever is what it is. So Lucas Van Ness out of Iowa, very nice size, 6'5", 272. From what I remember, I don't have the numbers here, but the arms could have been a little bit bigger than what they were. And I do want to say this when I'm talking about my edges. If there's somebody that I think they should only line up along the line, I don't think they should ever be used in off-ball situations. And if you're using them like that, then it's a mistake. I adjusted my grading scale for those guys, and Lucas Van Ness is the first guy that I did that with. I took out the off-ball part out of his grading. So some other players in this draft class for edges have it, some don't, because I don't think he's gonna be fitting you very well lining up as a linebacker. But with that being said, lining up on line, as mentioned, lining up probably on that DN is where I would prefer him. Great size, great athleticism, very violent hands, someone who can attack the offensive tackle just with ease. He can bully him. He's got enough athleticism, enough bend to get around the edge. He can kind of throw him around, push him over. I think he's very useful in both the pass and run game. He can shed blocks very well. He just needs to continue, adding to his repertoire moves. It's kind of like quite a few guys in this draft class need to. It's really not too different with most edge rushers coming into the league. Just continue adding to those moves, because right now he just kind of wins off of pure ability and does a very good job of it. But once he can add just a couple moves, add a couple finesse moves, just add, maybe one more bar move, I think he is looking at a very potential, legitimate defensive end.
Yeah, I mean, I think Lucas Van Ness is very similar to how you see BJ Ojulari. Right now, he's my 34th ranked player. I have him as a very high round 2 grade. This is just a guy that we haven't seen all of it yet. I think this is a guy who will really start to put pieces together as he gets to the next level and can become an elite edge rusher. He's got the speed. He's got the power. I love to see the fluidity in his game. But from what I saw on tape is the only reliable move that he had was the bull rush. There was not many other things that he was able to do. You talked about it, just one on pure ability. Also, I think he needs some help when it comes to gap recognition, when it comes to playing the run game. I think when he's in the right position, he does well. He tackles well. He gets the runner down to the ground. But I think there's times where he just misses the gap, doesn't see it, whereas the running back does. And then also, I think he does have nice hip fluidity and lateral agility. However, I don't know if he's got great bend as a pure outside rusher. But I think this is another case where you're looking at a similar George Karlaftis, but with higher ceiling when it comes to his athleticism, more speed, more strength. So I like Lucas Van Ness a lot. I just think he's a little bit more of a project. I think if you're talking about guys that will have day one impact, all the guys we've mentioned prior to Lucas Van Ness absolutely will. I think Lucas Van Ness might take a little bit longer. But, I mean, just with his speed and strength alone, he's going to be seen playing field pretty early on.
Yeah, I 100%. I can agree with a lot with what you're saying. I don't really see a world where a team doesn't use him right from day one. I think he sees every snap basically, or pretty much every snap like from day one, as long as he's healthy. And he's going to get some pretty good draft capital spent on him. Odds are he's going to be a first-round pick, and that's the way I see him. So when you're spending a first-round pick on that type of guy, like you're planning on using him from the get-go. So expect Van Ness to at least see the field. I think he's going to do a very strong job. Maybe not racking up 15 sacks, that type of thing, but QB pressures are an underrated stat that don't get as much recognition as they should. I think he's going to do a good job, getting those pressures, kind of forcing those throwaways.
Yeah, and I think he could come out and surprise a lot of us. I mean, we didn't see him a lot on the field because he was never a starter, thanks to Iowa's just idiotic game plan of rewarding seniors and redshirt seniors versus actually using their best overall players. So maybe Lucas Van Ness had some things that we just weren't able to see because of how Iowa used him. But I think overall he's a really good player, and with some time, I mean, this can be another elite edge rusher. I mean, when I'm looking at this running back class as well as this edge class, it reminds me of, I think it was the 2017 running back class, the one with Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon, Leonard Fournette. That draft class reset the league. Like, if you're talking about how many great running backs came out of that class, I think that very well can happen again with this class when it comes to running backs and edge rushers. I think down the line, 5 years from now, you're going to see at least 10 of these names be mainstays.
I think it's very possible. 10 is a lot from a draft class. So if that happens, like that would be awesome. I really hope that's the case, but it's definitely possible. If a class is going to do it out of these, classes that we reviewed since we started doing the show, it's going to be this one.
Yeah. All right, let's get to your number 6.
All right, Isaiah Foskey out of Notre Dame. And, I've got quite a few notes on compared to everybody else, like a little bit more, just because I kind of want a little more elaborate in him. I really, really, really love his size and athleticism combo. It's absolutely fantastic. He's big body at 6'5", 264, is very athletic. He is, does a very strong job getting off blocks. He's very useful in both pass and run situations. I think he's a very sound tackler, but the questions start to, arise in his just kind of functional strength. Like he's, someone that is a bigger guy. He's not really, winning with a powered move, not really, running over offensive tackles, offensive line, kind of like you'd hope. And I think he's got enough ability where I got to consider him as a potential off-ball type guy, and I still wouldn't use him that way. But I know teams are going to want to, and I think he's just kind of fine at that at best. So I personally would try to only use him in pass rushing situations. Well, I use him like on all 3 downs, but like when it comes to pass, a pass situation, I would want him rushing the quarterback. I really wouldn't want him dropping in coverage too often, just because I think you can find better guys to do that. So as long as you get a team who's just going to focus on letting him get to the quarterback, just let him rush the ball, I think he can have a ton of success that way, as long as he continues to add that upper body strength.
Yeah, and he's my number 8 edge defender, but another situation where I agree with a lot of what you said, as well as, oddly enough, he has the most notes for me too. So I don't know why.
Look at that.
But that's what we went with, I guess.
That's wild.
He had a lot of production in college and is a super smooth athlete. I really like the size and build with the athleticism that he's got going for him. But the one thing that was a little bit nerve-wracking when you actually talk about stats and not necessarily what you see on field, but virtually every single one of his pressures led to a sack. And so when he wasn't sacking the quarterback, he wasn't doing much, which that's a little bit worrisome when it comes to projecting to the next level. But he's got really good get-off speed, great burst. However, he has a false step. I don't know if you noticed that, Chase, but when he's standing up, when he's rushing the passer, he always has a false step. And it takes an elite first step to just great get off. It could be elite, but he's got to fix that. The one thing I noticed is when he's in a 3-point stance, he does eliminate his false step, and he has good leverage. He's very good in the run game when it comes to digging his hand into the dirt, and I feel like he could be pretty good at rushing the passer with his hand in the dirt as well. But I just like to see some team eliminate that false step if he's going to be a standing rusher, because that one's a tough one for sure.
And
go ahead.
Oh, wow. Sorry. Way to cut me off. I think that can be coached out, but it's a hard thing to do, but it can be coached out. It's, it's like going to hockey, people trying to say, oh, you can't really change a player's stride. You can't make him a better skater. Well, that was just a lazy argument back in the day, because that's something that comes naturally to you. We learned over time that you could. And it's the same type of thing. It's a habit to do that kind of false step, but it's something that can be coached out and done the right way. But if he rushed the quarterback every single down with his hand in the dirt, I think that he would still do just fine. I'm really not too concerned. I think that he would have a lot of success that way. So hopefully a team brings him in and does what I kind of hope and expect them to do with him, and he can have some success.
Yeah, and back to my analysis, because someone cut me off. But I think he's a good run stopper as well, and I think at the next level, you just let him develop a little bit more when it comes to his pass moves or pass rush moves and all of that. And I think he can be really good. I think this is one of the more underrated edge players in this draft. I think he knows how to use leverage really well, and I saw that a lot when he was in his 3-point stances. So I'm excited to see what he can do at that next level. I think this is one that someone might get a steal. This might be a guy that's in the running for Defensive Rookie of the Year because he goes to a good situation and because he kind of knows the game at a high level already.
Yeah, I agree. I do agree.
And Graham, that's saying I think he could, not saying I think he will. So don't put that on the takes tracker.
You already know he's going to.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about the old Kansas State edge rusher, Felix Anudike Uzoma. This is a guy I didn't have much exposure to coming into this. I know some people liked him, some people didn't. But this is a guy who I love him as an athlete. I think he's got great bend. I think he's got great burst, great speed. I think he needs to improve his functional strength a little bit, but I think his first step is the best in the entire class. You could argue Nolan Smith, but the way he just plants and goes, puts power into it, I absolutely love it. So I think with that first step, with the burst that he has, with the speed he has, and the above average strength, he knocks dudes back. And that's really exciting for me. I wish he would put a little bit more strength, like I was mentioning, and I think he needs to refine his pass rush moveset. But I think day one, he's going to be effective as a pass rusher. His run stopping also needs a little bit of work, and I don't see him as a guy that's going to be a coverage player. I think he's going to be similar to like a Dante Fowler, where he's a pure edge rusher. He's going to be hand in the dirt, but that first step is fantastic. So I think this is a guy who has great day one impact when it comes to rushing the passer, and allowing this dude who has that speed, has that bend, has that first step to gain more strength and get a better moveset. I mean, I think the guy's going to be fantastic.
So here's my notes, basically word for word on him, because they're not super extensive. I got quality pass rusher, seems consistent and persistent, but does not seem like to me he has a ton of room to grow. Does everything relatively well, but lacks a little bit of IQ and measurables. So should be a reliable pro, but I think with slightly limited upside. I don't think he's going to be bad. I don't think he's going to be elite. I think he can be good to great, somewhere in that range. Because I think he's got a lot of tools that are there, but I don't really have one, attribute that stands out above the rest. Like honestly, I think he's just well rounded, and there's nothing wrong with being well rounded. There's very good pros, very good pass rushers in the league that are well rounded, but I think he's never really going to be like viewed in the same lens as the other people in this class, just because it all just seems kind of fine to me. It all seems kind of just like it really just well rounded. If you see someone who they're mowing over offensive linemen, even if they only get 7 sacks, but they just truck through people all the time because of their power. Those guys are recognition. If you see, guys flying off the edge like we're going to see Nolan Smith do, that's going to get recognition. But he's just kind of like, he's like a ham and cheese sandwich. Like what a ham and cheese sandwich is. It's gonna be the same thing every time. It's good. It's not your favorite sandwich in the world, but it's gonna get the job done, and that's just kind of how I see him.
Yeah, and I don't hate the comparison because if you have a great ham and cheese sandwich that you love and it's just there every time, like he had great production at Kansas State, and I think that with the that first step and the speed, I think you can translate it to the NFL. I'm not sure how many sacks you're going to get out of him. Maybe 8 to 12, maybe gets to that 14 range. But if you can get a guy who is putting up 8 to 12 sacks every single year, is just consistent and persistent, continuing to, not show any like crazy flashes, but continue to make the game hard for another team, I would love that in the second round, which is where I have him graded right now.
I also have graded the second round, so like he's not outside of the first like 2 days for me. So like he's still a guy I'd happily take in the second round because I think he's going to make an impact. Mm-hmm. And before we transition, I just based on that comparison, because that kind of came up on the spot. I didn't really think about it, but once I said it, it's like, oh, I like this one. What we should do, whether it's on a show, whether we just put out a tweet or a graphic, whatever it might be, we should come up with we'll choose like 5 guys we want like comparisons of to like non-football related things. So it could be another sport. It could be, a ham sandwich type thing. It can be whatever. Okay. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, sure. We can do that.
All right. Beautiful. Kind of like when Matthew Tkachuk got compared to JJ Watt.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking about.
Yeah. I love those types of things. It's so stupid, but so awesome.
Mm-hmm. All right, cool. Let's move on to your something. I don't know. Who's next?
My number 8, Yaya Diaby.
Okay.
So I think Mr. Diaby is awesome. He is starting to skyrocket up boards because of his combine performance. It honestly wasn't a guy I really even thought to look at before the combine, but then I was like, all right, these are great athletic numbers. It's good measurables. Let's take a look. And he really did impress me as a whole. I think that with his size and athleticism combo, there's definitely still is some room to grow, but he put up good numbers in college, and it's a very good starting base when you can have that size athleticism. And you've seen him, maybe less consistently, put up some really dominant flashes. Like when he did put up the numbers, it was because he was kind of dominating in the game. But then there was also some times where he did get taken out of the game a little bit. I think he has a great burst. I think he reacts to the game well. I think his build is awesome. I think his versatility, I don't think he's scheme dependent. I think you can kind of move him along the line. If he needs to drop back in coverage, he can do all that. I like really just his game as a whole. All it's going to be is finding a level of consistency and making sure you can convert that athleticism into even more ability.
Yeah. You're going to have to send me some of the tape that you watched on him. I'd like to do a little bit more research, but from the little bit that I did, he tested great at the combine. But the tape itself told me a different story. Nolan Smith, obviously, he jumped out on the screen because you saw what he did at the combine, and it looked the same when he was playing. It didn't really look the same for me when I was watching tape. I didn't see the crazy explosiveness. I think he ran like a 4.58. I didn't see the 4.58 speed from Yaya Diaby when he had his pads on. I don't know if he lost some weight or, was doing some intense training coming into the combine that made it look a little different, but it looked different to me. And then I saw he was consistently eliminated by opposing offensive linemen, that being in the run game as well as the pass game. I would have liked to see some more on him there. I just think overall, when watching his tape, there wasn't much on the tape that made me go, okay, yeah, I want to spend a day 1 or day 2 pick on this guy. But that being said, because of his testing numbers, because of his measurements, this is a guy that I still put a late 3rd round grade on. I think he's still worth a shot because of that athleticism he showed.
Yeah, his athleticism is a big contributor to my grade, my grading scale, because like we're starting to realize in the NFL, like, you know, before even 5-10 years ago, just taking athleticism wasn't working. But these last couple of years, taking athletic players, teams have been a lot smarter in developing, and we're starting to see some more success there. So that's a big reason that I feel confident in that ability, is because I think that a team can continue to work them and help him kind of grow in that aspect. And basically what you said, your biggest concern there was just like you felt like he consistently got taken out of the game. And yeah, that was part of my analysis. It did happen, but I don't remember what game it was that I watched, but I feel like I saw more often him kind of showing that athleticism on the field, him winning more than you're kind of saying he did. So I still have him as, you know, that was my 8, and obviously I'm going to take 7 guys above him. But if he happens to be the next edge on the board and I got to take him, I'm definitely not going to scoff at it.
Yeah, he happened to be, and you're going to hate this, but he happened to be my 15th.
How's it pronounced? Onaduke Uzama, right? That's how it's pronounced.
Yes,
he is my 15.
Ooh. How many more edge rushers you got on your list that we haven't talked about yet?
So let me double check. Boom, boom. So I got 1, just like in general.
Like you're 9 and 10. Have we hit on one of them yet?
No, I still both my 9 and 10.
Okay, so we've already hit on my 6, 7, 8. So I have my 9 and 10 left as well. So we'll hit with your number 9 first.
I don't think we have any overlapping here in these last 2, do we?
I don't think so.
All right, so my number 9 got Derek Hall. Scroll up to his notes right meow. And he is someone that, you know, to me, I don't really see him lining up on the line here and there. He's you know, truly that that linebacking rusher, truly built for that 3-4 system, standing up tall. I think he has some very strong coverage skills as well. So like I trust him, you know, having that option to have him rush the quarterback, to have him fall back into some zone coverage when it comes to, you know, maybe an obvious passing situation where you've already got, you know, maybe 3 or 4 guys going to the quarterback. The athleticism is really nice, and that's how he finds his ways to win, is strictly off that athleticism. That's the big problem, though, is I'm putting a lot of faith into his athletic attributes here on top of his off-ball skills, because he still needs to improve quite a bit as a rusher. Like he has a lot of upside there. Like you saw him win and have a lot of success at times. But 1 second, sorry. Oh, apologies, my throat got super dry. So you see him at times, you know, really show that potential to win, show that success in both the run game and the pass game. But he definitely needs to continue to improve it in order to be like that dude when it comes to contributing.
And we talked last night on Xbox that there was one guy I was hoping to see some great things out of, and it just didn't show up. That being Derek Hall. Derek Hall does have great athleticism. I'll give you that. Strength is decent as well, but when it comes to his bend and agility, I just don't feel like it was there. I felt he was a very stiff edge rusher, and it reminds me a little bit of Jordan Willis. Now, Derek Hall, much more athletic than the likes of Jordan Willis, but Jordan Willis was a 4th-round pick out of Kansas State for the Cincinnati Bengals. It was a guy who had a lot of success in college, but it just didn't translate because he was such a stiff player. He couldn't become that elite edge rusher. I think that Derek Hall, because he doesn't have that elite bend, that elite lateral agility, it seems he always got washed out at the beginning of the play. unless he was able to, split a gap really quickly. But most of the time when he was actually going up against a competent line, he got washed out early and then would be able to make it back to the quarterback eventually in time if the quarterback held it long enough, or if his counterpart on the other side pushed the quarterback into him. That's where he found most of his production, at least on the film that I was watching. So this is a guy who I think is going to be more so of a great rotational piece rather than an edge that is going to make his money for himself and by himself. I think he is going to be one of those guys that needs a little help on the outside because him in general doesn't have that bend, doesn't have that lateral agility. The pass moves aren't really there yet either. So I just was hoping for more out of Derek Hall and didn't really see it.
So I definitely want him to be used more as that rusher and continue to develop that way, as I think he can definitely get there and be a contributing player, someone that maybe is not my most trusted guy in day one, but I think he can still be useful. But if a team wanted to see what he does and just use him as like a legitimate linebacker, I think he's got enough of a skill set that that would take a little bit longer because he's have to really focus a lot more on that development. But I think he could have some success there as well. So it really just comes down to the right coaching. I think that he's, regardless, it's not going to be lining up on the line. It's going to be a linebacker role, whether it be a rusher or it be strictly like a Mike linebacker. I think he's got enough tools to do both.
Yeah, and I think just looking at his athleticism, the way he moves, his straight line speed, what he did when it comes to testing and everything, and then looking at his physique in general, like it's easy to fall in love with the guy. And that's what I was hoping for. Maybe that's the reason I'm a little bit lower on him, because I was expecting so much more. But seeing my own team, my Cincinnati Bengals, draft players that are stiff, it really hurts me because it seems like none of them were able to pan out and really be a true, productive edge rusher at the next level. So that is probably my biggest attribute when it comes to edge players is I want to see their lateral agility and their bend. And if they don't have it, it really scares me. So, I'm hoping for the best out of Derek Hall. I hope he's fantastic. But just that aspect of his game scares me a bit.
Fair enough, I guess. But I don't know. I see enough upside there where it's a guy that I want to take a chance on.
My number 9 being Will McDonald out of, I believe it was Iowa State. This is, I feel like a kind of opposite perspective than Derek Hall, because I think this guy, he's got really nice speed, but I wouldn't say it's the top of the top, but the bend, burst, and speed combo is awesome. I love it. I think he's got the best bend in the entire class. He slices through gaps to create pressure. He doesn't have a deep pass rush move repertoire, so I think that will improve as he gets to the next level. He's a little bit of an older player, which scares me a little bit too, but I think given this guy enough time, he has some great tools already. Great arm length, makes strip sacks and defending against the run pretty easy for him. I wish he was a little bit more of a consistent tackler. He's missed quite a few tackles when it comes to his actual film, but I think this could be another guy like Anadike Uzoma, where you get him in the right system, you teach him the right moves. He already has that bend, lateral agility, speed, has pretty solid power as well to really become a consistent force when it comes to disrupting the backfield.
Yeah, and I've still got him ranked as a day 2 guy. He's my number 13 overall. So no hate here. Still someone I'd take in the 3rd round. I've got him as a high-end athlete, and as you said, great bend around the edge. Like it's maybe not pure speed, but like in terms of everything else when it comes to athletics outside of speed, like he does great. He is an absolutely awesome pass rusher. He can get to the quarterback really well. It was hard to really grade his coverage skills for me because I didn't see it a ton, but I saw enough where I think with his build and saw enough reps where like he could do some coverage if needed, and he has a profile to have success there with that athleticism and that kind of height weight combination. So really what it's going to come down to is just showing where he's going to fit best, and if he can continue to improve his run stopping, if he can continue to shore up his tackling a bit, he's got that legitimate potential of success in the NFL. But there's 12 other guys that I'd feel more confident taking for sure.
Mm-hmm. I'm really interested to see what team goes out and grabs them and what they can do with them. I don't know why. Maybe it's because Jermaine Johnson was a guy that was projected to go to the Seahawks a lot last year. Or maybe I'm seeing Will McDonald get projected to the Seahawks. I don't know. But for some reason that feels like a fit to me. And it like literally just popped up in my head. So I've got no rhyme or reason to say that it is, but for some reason it's in my head, and I'd be interested to see if that did happen, how they would utilize them.
Yeah, definitely be interesting.
All right, you're number 10. We got old Zach Harrison.
We do have Mr. Zach Harrison. Ohio State, and if I'm ranking Ohio State player well, it means they're probably good because no one likes Ohio State. So when it comes to Zach Harrison, great combination of size, great combination of ability, like our athletic ability. That's awesome. He is truly an elite athlete with that build. I think he is someone that scouts could fall in love with because of what you're given, just based on looks and the combine numbers, like those types of things. I think can really cause a team to just be like, all right, he's our dude. We could work with him. I think he gets to the quarterback well, based off his pure athleticism. I don't think he has the rush moves quite there yet to really dominate the NFL. I think his strength could really improve. I also think he could have a little bit better reaction time when it comes to flopping between run plays, pass plays, but and really just kind of finding gaps in the O-line. There was a rep or two, I can't remember what game, but like there was just an obvious gap, and he ended up grabbing the player instead of trying to squeeze through it. So that was a little frustrating. But they also saw plenty of times where he was able to get around the guys anyway. So really, if he can add those moves to his repertoire, if he can strengthen up, and if he can just kind of watch the film, recognize what he might be doing wrong in a couple aspects, and just do his best to kind of phase out of his game, I mean, he's someone that could dominate.
Yeah, and Zach Harrison's one of those last couple of players that I watched. And Chase, when you're watching a lot of guys in a row, you tend to really not do your best work towards the last couple of guys. So I barely got a peek at Zach Harrison. The size, the speed is fantastic, but you mentioned the burst and kind of being able to make that move when it comes to, first snap. Like, he's not the fastest guy off the line. When it comes to his fluidity, when it comes to trying to stop the run or stop the pass, he's always not the fastest to make those changes. So a little bit of stiffness, little lateral agility improvement I'd like to see out of him. But overall, can't really comment completely on his game. I need to watch a little bit more.
Fair enough.
All right, and finally, if you look at my list overall, a lot of these guys are big producers at the college level, except for the likes of Lucas Van Ness. And now, except for the likes of Adetomiwa Adebawore out of Northwestern. This is a guy who didn't have a lot of production. He has some lateral agility question marks, I think. But when it comes to his size, 280 pounds, having the speed that he does, having the athleticism, this is a guy I want to take a chance on. This is my one shot in the dark, a guy who didn't put it all together at the college level, a guy who doesn't have that elite bend that I'm always looking for, but is a guy who is very stout in the run game already and has that potential with the speed-size combo to be a pass rusher, even though we haven't really seen it at the highest level so far through college. So this is my guy that I'm going to take a shot on. I don't think he is going to come into the league and immediately have an impact on the defensive line, but I think he's kind of similar to a Boogie Basham, Carlos Basham from 2 years ago. He's got things that you like, but there's a lot of question marks with him. This is the one guy that I'm okay taking a chance on.
Yeah, and generally speaking, I can agree to a bunch of what you're saying. He's my 14th ranked player, or 14th ranked edge, I should say. Still second round grade. And here's what it all kind of comes down to. He is an absolute freak athlete compared to his size, because guys that are that height and weight combination shouldn't be able to move that fast. So it's a little scary. But the problem is, with that height and weight and not being, the most agile, the most laterally gifted guy, in my opinion, like, he's kind of in that tweener land. It's hard for true tweeners to succeed in the NFL. At the end of the day, even if a guy can be used as a versatile player, they're still going to have one position that they're going to specialize in. And I don't know what it's going to be I just don't know what's going to be with Adebawore. I would love to see him find some success at defensive tackle, but he's still too small to play inside. And just being used as a pure edge rusher, I still think that he's not quite there. I can get behind what you're saying, where if you're gonna take a shot on a guy, this is the guy you want to take a shot on. I can say that's fair, but here's kind of where I think it should be for teams drafting him. Keep in mind that you're gonna have to really work with him. You don't want to trust him completely from day one. Just let him fly. You're gonna have to figure out, get him in the training camp. Be like, okay, you're gonna succeed best inside. You're going to succeed best outside. We are going to hammer those skills that you need. We're going to focus on nothing else but that. And I think that's when, you can start seeing some success for him, maybe. And it's also just kind of a maybe, because he could very well flop. So it's either got to be a team that is completely rebuilding, where if they got to take shots on, get some high-end talent. So if they miss out on someone who could be a big boom in the third round and ends up being a bust, it's not the end of the world. Or a team that is already ready to go, and they don't have any big holes, so they want to take a shot on a guy who could, if he hits, all of a sudden just really boost their Super Bowl chances. And if he misses, it doesn't change much in your lineup. So if you're a team that's right in the middle of the pack, you're a playoff contender, or you're pushing for a playoff spot, maybe don't draft him, because you can get useful players in the third round, and if he flops, it's gonna kind of change your season a bit.
I think he could be a fantastic player when it comes to a 3-4 defense. A defense that likes a little bit thicker edges, that are really good against the run, but can also bring some pressure. I think he could really thrive in that type of place. I'm very curious to see how he produces, because Carlos Basham hasn't produced at the highest level up to this point. Now we know there's just a rotational door there with the Buffalo Bills. They've got so many edge rushers in there, and obviously they brought in Von Miller as well. So they've got a lot of competition, Carlos Basham does, but the numbers, he hasn't really stood out quite yet. I think Adebawore is a better athlete than Carlos Basham, already has the great run stopping that Carlos Basham has shown. So I'm curious to see what he can do when it comes to actually rushing the passer. But anyways, yeah. I'm curious to hear very quickly, because we're already over an hour and we got to still talk about linebackers. Very quickly, where'd you have Caleb Murphy out of Ferris State?
I had him at number 12. That's a guy I told you I wanted to mention. Someone that's outside my top 10, and it was Caleb Murphy, because it's another guy where I'm willing to take a shot on him, because I like the size. I think it's good enough athleticism. From the film I saw, it's obviously hard to completely grade, because FBS to FCS, it's still a drop down, but there's still a lot of talent in FCS, so it's easier to grade. Where Division II, it's really all over the place. There's some very strong D2 programs, and Ferris State plays a lot of those schools. They play some great schools. When they play Saginaw, they play Grand Valley. They're just within the state of Michigan. They're playing great D2 schools. But then sometimes they get the bully on Northwood, and my alma mater, and they're just a sad excuse for a football team. So it's always a little bit tough comparing. But when you saw what he did, he just absolutely dominated. Just disgusting pass rush. The college production was freaking 14 out of 10. He put up absolutely ridiculous numbers. He won best defensive player in all of college football, or maybe was it just best defensive player, or just best player in general?
I think best defensive player.
That's what I thought. I just want to make sure. So best defensive player in college football, just regardless of level. I mean, it was 43 and a half sacks over the last 2 seasons. He ended up having 29 this year. Just absolutely asinine numbers. And even if you're playing D3, if you're putting up those stats, someone should just take a shot on him because even if it's lower competition, to dominate that much, that consistently, it means at least something.
Yeah, and I put this guy isn't overly athletic or strong, but is an NFL caliber athlete. I wonder how much D2 ball will translate, but I'm excited to see it. This could be a case of a Trey Hendrickson, where the high on athleticism isn't necessarily there, but the dude just knows how to win. Interested to see. That's what I have for my notes.
It's like Amon-Ra on the offensive side of the ball for the Lions. Like, he's not an absolute freak athlete. He's not some towering force. He's just great at football. It very well could be the same thing for Caleb Murphy here.
Yeah, and speaking of Amon-Ra, there was a guy in this linebacker class that I was hoping would be similar to Amon-Ra when it comes to our rankings. It was a guy who was highly touted his freshman and his sophomore year, had a tough junior year, and I'm sure we'll at least mention him in this next little part. So, Chase, let's go through your 1 through 5 when it comes to our linebackers now.
Number 1. By the way, I want to say you're a bit down on it, and I'm just a general fan of linebackers. I grade them higher than a lot of the NFL scouts in general do, just because I still think it's a valuable position while the position is starting to devalue a bit. But you can say the same thing about running backs. So I'm still willing to believe in my linebackers. But number 1, Jack Campbell. I do have him as my only first round grade linebacker, and I think he's awesome out of Iowa. But number 2, I guess what I'm been working is a big gap, but number 2, I got Owen. I'm pretty sure it's pronounced Papo or Papo. I don't know for sure. Do you know on that one?
I think it's just Papo.
Okay, so yeah, Owen Papo out of Auburn. Number 3, I got Dan Henley out of Washington State, whichever one it is. Washington State, excuse me. Number 4, got Drew Sanders, Arkansas. And then number 5, I got Nick Herbig out of Wisconsin.
All right, my number 1 is Jack Campbell out of Iowa. He is a early second round grade for me. So I have no first round grades in this linebacker class. And it gets a little bit tough for me as we get towards the end. But my number 2, Dan Henley out of Washington State. Number 3, Ivan Pace out of Cincinnati. Number 4, Owen Papo out of Auburn. And number 5, Drew Sanders out of Arkansas. So pretty similar when it comes to names, only one different name here. But we start with Jack Campbell, our number 1.
Yeah, so I'm the resident linebacker lover here, so I'm happy to start off with Jack Campbell because I think he's awesome. I think he's absolutely awesome. And, going into the combine, there were some doubts on his athleticism. I saw it. I thought I saw it in film better than what I saw some analysis in terms of, the media and experts or whatever. But he proved the doubters wrong. He had a great showing at the combine. He's clearly a special talent for the linebacker position. The only problem is that he's going to be devalued because linebackers, the traditional linebacker positions kind of going away in the NFL. Like, those guys were predominantly used, as secondary run stopper type guys, and they could also do some pass coverage. But now that's such a pass heavy league, like you're kind of starting to see him phase out a little bit. But regardless, I think he is an incredibly instinctive player. He reacts incredibly well to what's going on. Like he can track down the quarterback if needed. He can just find the ball carrier with ease. He can drop back into coverage when needed. Like, he does a very strong job there. He's a very sound tackler. I don't really have any issues in his game. The only one might be is, I would like him to be a better pass rusher. He can still do it, but I'd like to see him maybe be better. But really, the way he's going to be used, he's not going to have to do that a ton anyway. He's going to be kind of that true Mike linebacker role, and I think he's going to just absolutely flourish at the position.
Yeah, and I feel generally similar to you when it comes to Jack Campbell. He's my number 1, obviously. My biggest issue with him, you mentioned a lot of his strengths, but my biggest issue for him was his play strength specifically, because when it came to the pass rush, I would see he'd often get locked up. And then when it comes to going against tight ends or bigger running backs, he would get the tackle, but he would tend to give up maybe an extra 1, 2, maybe 3 yards on the tackle because he has the size and he has the athleticism, but the strength couldn't just stand someone up. I mean, now, if you're playing against, a Deuce Vaughn, I'm sure he could stand that guy up. But when it came to tight ends and all that, if they hit him, he would move back a little bit, give up a little bit of extra. But he's got the coverage to go up against running backs. He's got the coverage to go up against tight ends. He's a sure tackler. even though he's given up those maybe 1 or 2 extra yards, he's still getting them down to the ground, and that's the biggest key. So this is my number one guy as well. I think he's a good player. Just don't think he's at the level of the last couple of guys we've seen when it comes to prior draft classes.
I'm telling you, if he gets used in the Shaq Leonard role, he is going to be an absolute weapon for defenses. Like he's going to dominate. And Chad Campbell, as people probably don't realize, he's one of the better covered defensive players. Like outside of corners, like that's a little different. But in terms of like safeties and linebackers, he's like one of the best in the league. He is consistently one of the top rated coverage guys in based off PFF. Like he's awesome, and I think that Jack Campbell has very similar upside to do like that exact same thing.
Yeah, I like Jack Campbell a lot. I personally think that when you're talking coverage strictly, there's a guy in this linebacker class that has more upside. But we'll talk about that when we get to him. Let's talk about your number 2, sure. Owen Pappoe.
All right, so my number 2, Owen Pappoe. Let me scroll down to him. I apologize. I just lost him on my sheet. There he is. So Owen Pappoe, nice size for the linebacker position. Not like great, but like nice enough to help out with his athleticism, and he is a great athlete. So it helps him be, a little more mobile at the position. Super high in recruit. He was a former 5-star, if I'm not mistaken. So shows where his talent level was coming out of college, and he put up some solid numbers in college. Wasn't dominant, but like he definitely showed some flashes. I saw some great some great plays where the defense would get beat. Maybe there'd be a runner who broke off a big play, or a receiver who caught the ball downfield. And I saw him 4, 5, 6 times track the guy down 30, 50 yards downfield, saving a touchdown. It was like that DK Metcalf play from all those years ago where he tracked whoever was like 80 yards downfield. Mm-hmm. I saw Pappoe do that quite a bit. And like that's something I love to see, because even if you're not going to be an absolute dominant force of the position, and I do have him as a 3rd-round grade in the day 2, so like I think the drop-off is relatively large between linebackers. So even if you're not going to be an absolute dominant force, like he's someone that shows the ability to recover from plays. He doesn't quit on plays, and I really do love that about him. And I think he does well in coverage. I think he's a great tackler. So it's a lot of it is there for him to have some success. I just hope I can kind of see that translate.
Yeah, I'm a big Owen Pappoe fan as well. I think that the speed, strength, athleticism overall, in comparison to his size, is fantastic. But that's my biggest gripe for him, honestly. Like when it comes to his game overall, I think he's a good player. I think he's one of the more polished players in this linebacker class. But I'm just worried that his size might not be able to translate. And I'm going to continue to talk about that for this linebacker class, because the top guys that I think are actually have some great hip fluidity and are great tackles, great coverage guys that can rush the passer, all the guys that do something at an elite level seem to be small in this class, outside of obviously the number 1, Jack Campbell. So Owen Pappoe, one of those guys, 6 foot, 225. He's got the size of a safety. I'm worried that might not be able to hold up at the next level. However, for his size, he does have solid strength. So I think that's my only big gripe for him. I think this is a guy that you can take in the 3rd round and hope that you have a really nice developmental piece that can play, later half of the year, maybe your 2nd year, and hopefully the size doesn't hurt him too bad.
And he can be used when needed from the get-go. If he got injured or something, like I think teams shouldn't be worried about playing him. But overall, yeah, if you can let him get a feel for the NFL first, like a lot of the linebackers could be the same thing. I think he can definitely have some success.
I mean, I think this is a guy who is going to be able to make some great plays immediately when it comes to special teams. Like guys that are really great athletes that might not be the biggest guys. They're always good on special teams, and I think Owen Pappoe can absolutely do that from day 1.
So he's my highest end. I mentioned special teams like throughout this draft class quite a bit. He's my highest end special teamer in this draft class so far, without doing DBs. And of all these linebackers that I graded, a lot of them I think have some pretty good, some like the ones I have belief in, at least their athletic ability, have some pretty good special teams upside. But right now, Owen Papple's my 101 at that kind of position there.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's talk about my number 2, Dan Henley out of Washington State. This is another player.
Also my number 3. Just want to say, so we don't have to do too much jumping around.
Perfect. But this is a fantastic player who is yet again a smaller guy. Chase talked about Brett Coleman on the show maybe last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, but it's a guy that Chase and I have a lot of faith in. We agree with a lot of the takes that he has, and Diane Henley, another one of those guys that is one of his favorite players. Diane Henley is that guy I was talking about when it comes to his coverage ability. I think that it has the best potential coverage ability of this entire class. He needs to be better when it comes to the line of scrimmage and rushing the passer. Anything down low, he definitely needs some work. But as a former defensive back, former wide receiver, former quarterback, you can absolutely tell he was all of those because of his great athleticism and fluidity. Also, the ability to just read the play is all there for him. I think this is a very much Jermaine Pratt-like case. Jermaine Pratt was a former safety that eventually turned linebacker, went to the Cincinnati Bengals, and he just got paid this offseason on a 3-year deal. So I think that Deion Henley can do very similar things to Jermaine Pratt. Beef up a little bit. He's already got great knowledge of the game, great coverage ability. Just need to improve when it comes to run stopping and pass rushing.
My notes: safety skill set, linebacker mindset. Because like that's really the truth here. Because like he does have those coverage skills. He does have the ball skills in the air. He does have the tackling ability. All that stuff that you would see out of a safety. But he's playing at the linebacker position, and he thinks more like a linebacker in terms of kind of driving with a little more power, being a little more useful in the run on top of that coverage as well. So I think he is someone that is going to offer a great level of trust, versatility, and like for a team. I think he can be used to rush the passer when needed. I think he does everything very well on top of being an elite, coverage guy. Someone that I'm very happy to take. I was sending you those mocks over the last couple of weeks, Mike, where all 4 of the mocks I had the Lions taking Dane Henley in the second round. And I think if they can get him in the third round, it's even better value. But the way the draft fell, I didn't want to take any chances. And I'd be okay with the team. I have him graded as a third round guy, but I'd be very okay with the team taking him in the second round just because I can see why you would want to trust him like that. I'm sure he'd succeed at nickel, honestly. I think you can really move him around like very safely. I think he's just a guy that you can truly trust every down at a couple of different spots.
Yeah, he's a super fun player, and I actually see Diane Henley pretty similar when talking about Ivan Pace, who's my number 3 linebacker. And when I talk about similar, I mean as they are very one aspect as of right now. Diane Henley, awesome when it comes to coverage ability. When it comes to the line of scrimmage, not great by any means. Ivan Pace, when it comes to the line of scrimmage, run stopping, pass rushing, fantastic. When it comes to coverage, outside of covering a running back, I don't really see the ability, at least as of right now. I think Ivan Pace is going to be another guy who's going to be fantastic when it comes to special teams, but this guy is an absolute firecracker, super aggressive, super quick, has the speed and elusiveness to beat linemen, and we saw that very often when he was there in Cincinnati. He constantly caused chaos in the backfield. I think he's a great tackler. I think that when it comes to covering running backs, he's a guy who has the speed to keep up with any running back out there, and he's also a guy that is going to pop your running back. And this is like a strong safety type of player because he has that speed. He has that I don't want to say power because he's a smaller guy, but when you're talking about a guy who wants to just crack people, that's Ivan Pace. So I think if you play him in the right situation, then he can be a great player. If you're expecting him to go out there and be a coverage linebacker, yeah, good luck. Maybe you should get a different coach.
Yeah, dude. I like Ivan Pace, but I don't like him either. It's hard to explain. the problem is like he's so small. Like you don't see a ton of extremely successful linebackers with that size combination. Like there's some that do, but usually you got to be over 6 foot because it gives you better leverage. It makes you a little more useful in passing situations, like in coverage. And he's obviously very small. He also has kind of limited reps playing a true linebacker position. He lined up all the time on the edge, which is just wild for a 5'10" player lineup on the edge. But he did have success in that aspect. Is that going to happen in the NFL? Probably not. I don't know if we've ever seen an edge rusher that small, like actually go on and do things in the NFL. Have we ever even seen an edge rusher that small? I don't know. So it's going to take us some time to truly develop into a legitimate linebacker. I don't know if his coverage skills are ever going to get there. Right now I've got him as my linebacker 11 in the class. Someone I would be fine taking in day 3, but don't expect him to be on the field year 1 other than in special teams. If he surprises and develops, then like that'd be great, but I just don't see it happening. I think he's going to be a special teamer because he's got a high motor, because he works hard, he does the right things. He can pop a ball carrier, but just the size and the limited linebacker reps, limited linebacker skill set that I saw, I don't see how he makes an impact year 1.
Yeah, and I'm higher on Ivan Pace than you are, but I wouldn't say by much. And I say that because it just kind of shows my opinion on this linebacker class overall. I mean, one of the linebackers I graded is the second worst player I've graded in this draft class, only in front of Mayan Williams. And this was a guy who I think is widely seen as a top 10 linebacker. So,
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Did he play for Alabama?
He did.
He sucks, dude.
He's so bad.
I don't understand it.
You want to hear my?
Yeah, let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Okay, so this is for those of you unaware. This is Henry. What is it? 2020?
Yeah, 2020. I think it is.
These are my exact notes. Not really sure how this guy was a 3-year starter for Bama. Maybe I only watched his worst games of his career, but he had remotely no impact on 90% of the plays he was on the field. Diagnosed the play all right, but when it came to getting to it and breaking it down, it never happened. Decent speed, but didn't have strength to get around bodies, would drop tackles often. I feel like the only thing you could say is above average for this guy is his processing.
Ready for my notes?
Yep.
Heavily underwhelmed compared to my expectations going in. Fine athleticism and solid enough all around, but is undersized and not strong. Does not react to plays quick enough for me to be a disruptor in the run game. Is not an elite linebacker in terms of coverage, but if you really need him to, you can try and see if he can do it. Needs to grow his skills quite a bit to even try to succeed. A player I have no interest in.
Yeah. I mean, not a great player.
Hey, I mean, if Henry, if you're listening, I'm sorry, but like that's just the truth.
And I feel like around draft circles, he's still seen as a top 10, top 12 linebacker in this class. Maybe it's because I think there's only like 17 or 23 or something like that, but it's bad. Yeah,
I've got 18 on my list for linebackers. So it's a very, very, very small amount.
Yeah.
And I've seen some things like, oh, he's a day 2 pick. In what world is he a day 2 pick?
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
He is. I have him graded like mid to late 6th round right now.
Yeah, that's where I have him as well. All right,
man. Sorry, Henry.
Let's jeez. Let's get to your number 4 player, Drew Sanders, out of Arkansas.
Oh man, that was a tough tangent for a player we weren't even going to talk about at all.
I know, right?
Oh, God, that's funny. All right, Drew Sanders, Arkansas, as you mentioned, nice size, a little bit slight for his height. So I'd like to see him add a little more weight, and hopefully not sacrifice athleticism in that process because he's got nice athleticism, but I would like to see him add a little bit there. I think he's a pretty smart player as well as having some good help in the run game as being useful in coverage as well. But really, the problems that kind of really come up for me is his tackling technique kind of sucks. Like it's just not good. Like if he can truly get full hold of a guy and if he can learn how to tackle, I think he could be awesome. I think he could be a very good linebacker. But like I feel like on 70% of tackles, it was just like the guy was covered in butter or something because it was just whoop and keep on running.
Mm-hmm.
It was really weird, but like he did the right things. Like he did find a coverage. He reacted well. He got to the ball carrier, but he just didn't bring him down. It was wild to me. So I'm a believer in if you can help him figure out how to do that, he can have some success. But like right now, the strength isn't there, the tackling ability isn't there. So if those things get there, yeah, he can be useful. But right now, he's late third round for me. I could be fine with anybody not taking him a day two because that tackling ability is so poor. Because that just it really means that it's like a quarterback. This year one's kind of a redshirt year for him, I think. Because if you're a bad tackler, you're not playing on special teams. If you're a bad tackler at the linebacker position, you're not really starting either. So I could see a world where he drops a little bit because of that. Or if a team really believes they can kind of teach him that technique, then maybe they take a shot on him.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot of what you said. The athleticism is all there. He used to be a former edge rusher. And you can see the way he maneuvers between gaps to stop the run and to be able to put some pressure on the quarterback is there. I think zone coverage, he was actually pretty solid at as well. I'm not really sure about man coverage. I'd be interested to see how he pans out there when it has, if he's got to cover like a Kyle Pitts, I think he's just going to get smoked. But if he's going to be playing against, I don't know, name a Drew Sample, he'll be able to fare okay there. But
you're saying he'd do okay against Drew Sample? I think I'd do okay against Drew Sample.
No, you wouldn't. You would not.
Okay.
He was a second round pick for a reason, Chase.
Yeah, the reason was because the Bengals drafted him.
I mean, pretty goated team. Pretty goated
Yeah, I
team.
don't think so.
But yeah, the big gripe for me was the tackling ability needs to be ironed out heavily. Often lunged way too far, missed tackles. He was the worst missed tackle rate in all draft eligible linebackers this year. So that kind of just shows you, and it was over 23%, which if you're missing one of every four tackles, that's a nightmare.
Like my 70% is obviously an exaggeration, but like 23% in real life football, that's close to 70% in how you're evaluating a player. That's bad.
Yeah.
Oh boy, I did not realize that was that number. That's unfortunate.
Yep. All right, well, that hits all my five. You've got one left. Let's talk about Nick Herbig out of Wisconsin.
Yeah, so Nick Herbig, he's probably like best served as a pass rusher from the linebacker position, like someone that I would probably use in like more of a 4-3, but like use him on like blitzing packages because like he does have edge rusher skill set, but I just don't think he's good enough to be an edge rusher. So he's kind of in that tweener spot where I like a lot of the skills that are there, so I'd be willing to take a shot and see how it works out because I think he's useful in the run game. I think he's pretty good in coverage too. So like, to use him in that aspect, especially in his own coverage, he does a pretty good job occupying space and making a quarterback kind of avoid throwing, just over the middle right there. So I think he does that part well. But like he just kind of needs to keep it rolling, keep improving as a true linebacker and show that he can kind of do well in the blitz game, because if he's not going to do well in the blitz game and he's only used as a cover linebacker, I don't know how much he plays. I don't know how much success he has. I think that, overall, he's a good enough player to start, good enough player to play, but is he going to be like high end? I don't know.
Yeah. And I personally don't see him as a day one starter. This is a guy, you mentioned it. He just got to keep going. I think you're right. Although I feel like he needs to keep going even more than other people. I feel like he's a little bit more raw than some of these other guys. He's my number 9 linebacker in this class, but there's nothing that like he can't improve on. Like guys that are small, they can't get, Ivan Pace is 5'10" and a half. He can't get 6'2". That's just not going to happen. But Nick Herbig, some of his biggest issues for me is he's not as consistent when it comes to the pass rush or run stop because he lacks some strength. You can get stronger, especially when you get to the NFL. His zone coverage, I think, was decent. I don't think his man coverage was necessarily all there. But again, that can get better. his athleticism, his size, pretty solid. I just think he just needs to improve upon the base that he has. It's just going to take some time for him.
Yeah, for sure. And to finish off my notes, it says if he continues to develop his linebacker skills, he could be a very sturdy NFLer. So not that he's going to be like I don't think he's going to be some just you got to know it Nick Herbig's name because he is tearing it up. He is a perennial Pro Bowler. Like no, he could be a guy that helps the team. Like that's really what he is for me.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right, I want to talk real quickly, see where you have these three names. Because we've seen a lot of hype around Trenton Simpson out of Clemson. Noah Sewell is the guy I was talking about that I thought could have that Amon-Ra type of ranking for me. One where people are down on him, but potentially we're higher on him. And then finally, D. Winters out of TCU. Curious if you had him on your board at all.
So I'll answer you for D. Winters. No, I don't. I never even got around to watching him because based on what I was reading, I was like, I'm just going to prioritize other players. And so I never even really bothered watching them. If you're asking me the question, maybe I got to go back and watch just to basically see what your analysis is. But the other two, Noah Sewell, Trenton Simpson, are my last two linebackers I have with day 2 grades. I've got 7 total that I would take day 1 or 2, and a lot of them are still kind of developmental type guys. But Noah Sewell, Trenton Simpson are the other 2 guys there. I believe in both guys. I think they have good enough builds, good enough athleticism to be contributors in the NFL, but I don't know how high end.
Yeah, I like Trenton Simpson a decent bit. He's my number 6. I'd like to see what he's able to do. I feel like he's a little bit slow when it comes to his reaction time, when it comes to diagnosing the play. He's a little bit slow there, but overall, he's got the attributes to be able to do good things at the next level. Noah Sewell, I had him down at my number 10. I didn't think he was fast enough, and he also had an astounding 15% missed tackle rate. So there was just, he didn't click the boxes for me that I was hoping he was going to. And then D. Winters, he was an absolute playmaker. I mean, I don't know if you remember, but he was the guy that had the pick 6 on J.J. McCarthy in the national championship or playoff game. And this is a guy that
college football semifinal. Yeah.
I originally thought D. Winters was a safety because he's only 5'11", 227. And so when I saw him playing against Michigan and other teams as well, because they played in the Big 12 championship, obviously, this guy was out there making plays. He was all over the place. I was like, man, I really like this guy. This could be one of the top safeties in the league. And then in college football in this upcoming draft. But then I realized, oh, he's a linebacker. So he's a bit smaller. I think he could be similar to an Ivan Pace or a Deion Henley, where there's potential that maybe the next level teams like him better at safety. But this is a guy who just made plays everywhere. So I personally have him as my number 7.
So I do remember him a bit from the game, but just didn't really watch much just because I remember him a little bit now that you're saying the name, and then from reading just not a guy that was revered by circles. So I was like, I get other guys I'm going to prioritize, make sure we get all of our rankings done for this week. So I'll go back and watch, kind of get back to you, see what I think.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good. All right, well, that's going to do it for the show. I want to thank you so much for coming out and giving it a listen. If you stayed all the way through an hour and 38 minutes, I apologize. It was a long one, but hopefully you enjoyed. Hopefully you know some more players' names by now, and when the draft comes around, you hear a name called, you go, oh, hey, WNP helped us out with that. So if you want to stay up to date with all that we do, you can follow us on Twitter at WNP Sports Pod. That's again at Twitter or on Twitter at WNP Sports Pod. If you want to follow our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, those links will be down in the description. If you could please give us a like, comment, subscribe if you're listening on YouTube, and hit the bell to turn on notifications. Let us know who your number 1 edge rusher and your number 1 linebacker is down in the comments. If you're listening on a podcast platform, if you could please give us a 5-star rating and a follow, we would absolutely love you for it. Thanks so much for coming out. And as always, we're not professionals.